When it comes to Twilight, reams of fanfiction could be written around the various what-if scenarios it presents. What if Bella had become a vampire after being bitten by James? What if Edward had never returned, but had instead left Bella to remain with Jacob in New Moon? What if Bella, in order to protect her father, turned Charlie into a vampire? These are all questions I'd like to explore in future videos. But for today's episode, I want to discuss Renesmee, specifically her romantic interest. Now, anyone who's watched Twilight knows about the imprinting controversy. While Jacob will never age, the fact that he imprinted on Renesmee while she was a baby makes the potential relationship weird by default. The books make it clear that there are no romantic elements within the relationship while the girl is young, as Bella witnesses another of the boys playing the role of glorified nanny to the toddler Claire he's imprinted on. This statement is reiterated by Jacob, who adds that the shifter who imprints will be whatever she needs him to be, whether that's a parent, a brother, a protector, or a lover. Still, the twist, however convenient, struck many as off-putting. Some defended it, adding that Jacob had no choice in the matter, and Bella herself is uncomfortable with what has happened. Jacob, too, expressed his disgust with imprinting before he was overcome by it. Therefore, maybe the twist is wrong, given the book's own acknowledgement of its strangeness. However, if Renesmee doesn't choose Jacob, who can she choose? If she's going to be the star of a YA novel, romance is a given. Yet with Jacob perceived as creepy, another character could be introduced. And my prediction is that it would be Nahuel, the only other vampire-human hybrid who's male and unrelated to Renesmee. Before we continue, I'm Riley and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel I rant about fantasy books, discuss characters and lore, share my bookish opinion, and offer the occasional writing advice. If any of that sounds like your cup of blood, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Fridays. Renesmee's future is uncertain, but a sequel, if there's any sequel at all, is likely to feature her as the star. As such, the question of who she should or will end up falling in love with remains open. Point number 1. Why the controversy? First, let's address why the relationship is controversial. Well, it's made clear that there is nothing romantic within relationships where children are involved. The implication is that a coupling will be the end result. When talking to Jacob about his future, Quill notes that, since imprinting on Claire, he doesn't see girls anymore. That is, he is no longer capable of being attracted to anyone who isn't Claire, despite the fact he isn't attracted to Claire yet either, given her age. Of course, the shifters don't age, which enables those they imprint on to catch up to them, and the idea of an immortal falling in love with a mortal who's a few decades younger isn't new. The age gap between Quill and Claire is technically less pronounced than that which is between Edward and Bella. When it comes to fantasy in general, you see even greater gaps, such as a 1,000-year-old Arwen falling in love with a 60-year-old Aragorn who looks 20. Some people find the age gap in itself unnerving within such fantasy stories, but the majority can accept Edward and Bella without being grossed out. What makes the imprinting uncomfortable for people is the fact that some of those being imprinted on are children, and while there is nothing happening, the fact that something will happen is in itself disturbing for many, because this could be considered child grooming. For those who don't know, child grooming is when an adult spends an inordinate amount of time with a minor, developing a deep relationship which, while not romantic initially, is primed to be such. Doted on from an early age, these children will then go out with their childhood friend. In the most extreme examples, They may even begin dating immediately within reaching legal adulthood, committing themselves at 18 or 19 to someone who's known them from diapers. Of course, discussion around child grooming is relatively new. Much of what we considered okay even 10 years ago is now frowned upon, and Twilight has been out for more than a decade. Some people were weird about the plotline from the get-go, but just as many of us didn't think twice. Even if we found it weird, fantasy in general is weird, and Twilight in particular. In a book where vampires play baseball during lightning storms and sparkle in the sun, you aren't expecting normalcy. Section number 2. Is there a defense? Jacob makes it clear that, in cases where a wolf imprints on a child, there will be nothing romantic between them until the child is an adult. What's more, and to me this is the most key point, the shifter will fulfill whatever role the imprintee requires. As such, he can be anything to her. The relationship doesn't have to be romantic. Instead, Jacob will do whatever Renesmee wants, even if that means acting as her devoted older brother. Part of the controversy of imprinting in general comes down to a perceived lack of choice on the part of the woman. Even in cases where she refuses the advances, all of them seem to cave in the end. It's never explained if the woman can still have feelings for others, but it's never stated she can't either. The absolute obsession a wolf has with his prospective partner seems to be one way, even if the other party is deeply in love with him. Jacob tells Bella that no woman could refuse that level of devotion when she asks what would happen if a girl wasn't interested. But that's not a satisfying answer. It could be that the imprinting does work both ways, on some level. It's possible any person a wolf imprints on would be wired to find them attractive. But there are exceptions to every rule, and other books, such as the ACOTAR series, have addressed the pitfalls of imprinting. In the ACOTAR series, people who are terrible together can end up imprinting, leading to unhappy marriages and torn families. The connection might not be immediate on both sides either, as Rysand is aware of imprinting on Feyre before she's aware of imprinting on him. In other words, imprinting can be a bad thing too, and Twilight, as it comes into the modern age, could explore this theme. In all fairness, Twilight is a fantasy book, and one which was written back in the early 2000s. But Meyer would be remiss not to address the strangeness of the relationship shared between Renesmee and Jacob. It could imply that Renesmee herself doesn't have agency. Through her teens, she should be allowed to date other people, fall in love, and build an independent life which isn't tangled up with Jake's. One way to address the relationship would be for Renesmee to refuse Jacob romantically. Presumably, Jacob will do whatever Renesmee wants, and if she says she wants him to act as an older brother, it's likely he would do so, whatever the cost to him personally. Unfortunately, that presents a problem in itself. The Twilight series is labeled as a romance. As such, Renesmee, no matter how strong or independent she is, will be expected to fall in love with someone. That's just an expectation within her story genre. But if Jacob isn't an option, someone else needs to intrigue her. This is where Nahuel comes in. Section number 3. The case for Nahuel. Not much is known about Nahuel's personality, but a brand new series exploring Renesmee's life could unpack this. What readers of the book do know is that Nahuel was the result of an experiment. His vampire father impregnated numerous human women in hopes of creating a new super race, though all of the mothers died on giving birth. Of his hybrid siblings, Nahuel is the only male, as well as the only venomous one of his kind, able to create pure-blooded vampires through his bite, as he did with his aunt. As Renesmee isn't venomous either, the implication is that only male hybrids carry venom. it's not yet confirmed whether or not Renesmee could become pregnant, whether with another hybrid or a shifter, but I'm inclined to think she can. To me, the fact that Jacob imprinted on her is proof in itself. Vampires can't change, but a hybrid can. Though she will freeze at a certain age, Renesmee, by default, changes when she eats or ages through childhood. These processes, such as the digestion of food or an increase in height, are proof in themselves that her body is capable of changing in a way pregnancy would demand. If she can grow her hair out or gain weight, these shifts would also prove she could become pregnant. Moreover, there are theories around imprinting itself. Though they're only theories, it's surmised that imprinting occurs in order to either increase the chances of the wolf gene being passed on or to create stronger wolves. If the latter theory held true, what could make wolves any stronger than introducing vampire DNA into their genetics? As it stands, wolves have a weakness to vampire venom, becoming sickened when exposed to it, and their inherent natures make it difficult for them to be civil to bloodsuckers. However, any child between Renesmee and Jacob would circumvent all of this. A shifter with vampire blood could have numerous advantages. In addition to possessing stronger skin and greater speed, a shifter with vampire blood could be immune to vampire venom. He or she could live with vampires without being repulsed. Plus, any child of Renesmee's will likely be gifted. Based on what I know of Bella, Bella's parents, and Edward, I even have a theory about what that gift could be, though that's a subject for another video. At any rate, this super shifter would have a psychic talent of some kind. Finally, if such a child is male, he may even be able to infect his adversaries with vampire venom, crippling them with fiery pain in the heat of battle, so as to defeat them quickly. Still, fascinating as any child between Renesmee and Jacob would be, their relationship is odd, and so we have to look at option number 2, Nahuel. If Renesmee develops feelings for Nahuel, the question of whether they could have a child together or not would be almost as interesting as what would happen if Renesmee had Jacob's kid. Nahuel's father wanted to create a new super race, people who could eat and sleep, but who had the advantages of vampire life, including improved strength and immortality. Having the best of both worlds, hybrids get to live forever and enjoy milkshakes, though it's implied that some, like Renesmee, still prefer blood. If Renesmee and Nahuel could have a child, they'd inadvertently fulfill the dreams of Nahuel's father. Renesmee is the only one of his kind who isn't related to Nahuel, a fact Bella is only too aware of. While Nahuel is more fascinated with Bella, seeing in her what his mother could have had, the possibility is nevertheless raised, providing another out for those who don't want to see Jacob and Nessie together. As a quick aside, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button. Point number 4. Why an interest in Nahuel is likely. Twilight is a young adult novel, which means one thing. In addition to romance, its readers are going to be expecting a love triangle. When it comes to the original saga, everyone remembers the famous or infamous debate between Team Edward and Team Jacob. Before the saga's conclusion, there was mystery around who Bella would ultimately choose. Edward seemed the likely candidate, but Jacob presented that what-if factor. Therefore, it would only make sense to introduce Nahuel as a possible love interest, for multiple reasons. First, he's an established character. Introduced in Breaking Dawn, readers have seen just enough of him to find him interesting without anything critical being revealed. Second, he's the only hybrid male, connecting him to Renesmee in a way no other character can be. Third, He'd give her agency. By allowing Renesmee to choose someone in addition to Jacob, she herself would be a stronger character. Instead of having her life mapped out for her, she could be seen to be making informed decisions. Even if she ends up with Jacob in the end, seeing her consider Nahuel would make it clear that Renesmee had a full say in her destiny, especially if Jacob gives her the option to choose. Nahuel would become the new what-if element, switching Jacob's role in the triangle, and readers would be left guessing. Whether it's the genetic possibilities, the agency he offers to Renesmee, or the tension he'd add to the narrative, Nahuel seems like an obvious choice. Point number 5. Could another love interest come along? Personally, I like the idea of Nahuel being a love interest because he's a previously established character, and one who readers didn't see enough of. If he doesn't play a pivotal role in any sequels, then his involvement in Breaking Dawn would feel too convenient. However, if he does have a role to play, then his introduction in the original saga strengthens it by giving it an element of foreshadowing. Bella worrying about his interest in Renesmee feels too much like a hint of things to come. That said, Meyer could also expand her world by introducing a new group of shapeshifters. They could be another group of wolves, or even those who turn into another animal entirely. But what if another shifter imprinted on Renesmee, this time when she was an adult? By introducing this other shifter, the idea of Renesmee creating a group of superwolves could still be explored without having her end up with Jacob. The new love interest could even be from the same tribe, but be the same age as Renesmee. Who's to say more than one wolf couldn't imprint on the same person? It would raise an interesting debate, as well as add to Twilight's world building. And again, it would give Renesmee more say if she could be shown as having options. In conclusion, I'm not here to criticize or defend Renesmee choosing Jacob. However, I'm inclined to believe she'll have a second love interest, not only to soften the controversy, but to adhere to the conventions of Twilight genre. Love triangles are simply expected in YA romance, and for romance in general, they provide plenty of drama. Giving Renesmee another option, whether that's Nahuel, a second shifter, or both, would strengthen her as a person, making it clear she has the choice whether she ends up with Jacob or not. Moreover, having Nahuel compete for her interest would keep readers guessing, as well as leave them wondering whether the pair could have children and thus continue the hybrid species. Given Twilight's religious undertones, seeing Nahuel and Renesmee become the Adam and Eve of their race wouldn't be that much of a shocker. There's another possibility. Renesmee could choose them both. It sounds crazy, but there's a moment in Breaking Dawn when, hoping to give Bella a child, Edward presents to Jacob the idea that he could be with Bella, in addition to her being with Edward. Edward gives Jacob permission to give Bella a healthy baby, if that's what she wants. Bella rejects the idea, but still, it's out there. Like mules, Renesmee and Nahuel may be genetic dead ends. While Renesmee's journey could mirror that of Bella, with her ending the series with a child, her being infertile would be an equally dramatic twist. Even if she isn't infertile completely, she might be unable to have a child with Nahuel. Renesmee could choose Nahuel, but still have Jacob offer to give her a child. In this way, Jacob could have a legacy without actually being involved with Renesmee, giving him something else to fight for. And Renesmee could have her own level of agency by choosing a relationship which doesn't involve imprinting at all. All of this might sound crazy to you, but we are talking about Twilight. Given the wild ride that was Breaking Dawn, it makes sense for any sequels to be equally off the wall. Plus, if Renesmee can still have Jacob's kid, or that of another shifter, the child born of this coupling could be the star of yet another series. Maybe one where a shifter vampire hybrid falls in love with one of the children of the moon. Because, well, none of this is convoluted enough. What would you like to see happen? Would you like to see Renesmee choose someone other than Jacob? Are you curious to see what kind of character would result from a vampire shifter hybrid? Would you rather Renesmee rejected all of it, whether romance or kids? Sound off in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.